Hello, good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. We're going for another episode of the Croissant Files Live. Saturday morning. It was a long week, to be honest. This week, a lot of work, I would say, as usual. But and the week was a little bit boring. To be honest. I mean, I think this week the main point were on the geopolitical side, where we're all waiting about Israel striking Iran, which has not happened yet, to my knowledge, right now at this time. We had kind of the confirmation that about what we've talked for weeks, if not months, about stagflation, the recession with inflation. That will be very interesting, especially when the jobs number will be corrected. That will be very interesting to see. And what else on the market? Basically, I would say not much, except that the S&P 500 made a new high, and I think that we'll see that at the end. The Dow Jones as well just made a new high on Friday. There's still a little bit of ground to gain for the Nasdaq. But that's not the main story. The message is on the bonds at this time that are collapsing. At the time when the Fed is decreasing rates, isn't that interesting? So I guess you are all ready. I am. I have my coffee. So do wait for a couple more people to join or not. I will have an interesting afternoon today. First, I will be updating my website this afternoon, and second, I will have a photo shoot outside. I'm mainly using my garage as a studio. This is where I shoot all my my portraits and all my work. And this afternoon, I will be shooting outdoors, which is very new to me. It's something that I'm not totally comfortable with. I will say, I mean, it's always, a learning experience. So that will be, I think, interesting. So you're probably not here to hear me about my photography. So let's start. And to start, let's move first this on top. Okay. So let's go. What do we start with? Just a quick word on Milton, the hurricane that went through Florida. I mean, it came like a strength 5 hurricane. Fortunately, as soon as it hit the land, the intensity decreased pretty rapidly. So, but I just want, and there was not as much damage as it could have been. Because at some point it was thought that it could rise to a strength 6 hurricane, which was unprecedented. But the fact that the intensity reduced very rapidly as soon as it hit the land, because once it was in the middle of Florida, it was already downgraded to strength 3. Again, just much less damage about this. And the reason I wanted to talk about Milton specifically is that we had other heartbreaking stories about people, that specifically one that I'm thinking about, a lady with a single woman with multiple kids and animals. Basically, she stayed in a house for the simple reason that she didn't have the mean nor the family to be able to help. So she had nowhere to go. So she said, "Well, we stay and see what happens." I mean, it's just the reason that I feel it's really heartbreaking. We are supposedly in the richest country in the world, but by which standards? That's really my question. We are not able to provide basic security for people in that kind of event. Anyways, This is my socialist part, I would say. It's just a joke. Don't worry. So election forecast. Why do I say this? This is the what? This is the poly market estimation for the win for the election now in less than a month. Trump is winning. But the reason I'm putting this up is because elections are all about momentum. And the one that definitely has momentum at this point, and there is very little time for Harris to invert that, is Donald Trump. So I think if he can only keep the momentum going, basically at this point is Trump's election to lose. If he doesn't make any mistake, he has no incentive to make another debate. Harris wants another debate, obviously, to try to catch up. Again, it's Trump's election to lose at this point. We know that there may be shenanigans on election nights. I believe that the election will still be closed, and basically, Donald needs to be 20 points ahead, if you see what I mean. Next, about the US, yeah, what struck me this week, there was a really big barrage of left politicians like Hillary Clinton, newspaper like The Atlantic, Politico. Everyone is attacking free speech at this point. Because they realize that they are not anymore in control of the narratives. They cannot control people. And this is exactly what Hillary Clinton said on the TV show, saying that we lose control. She didn't talk about, hate speech. She didn't talk about, anything else, misinformation, but she said we lose control. And that's exactly what it is about. And that is why the First Amendment is so important. I mean, it's not, First Amendment is not only useful for people who agree with you, it's useful for people who disagree with you, and for you to be able to hear another tune, let's say, and make you think. That is the most important. Talking about Hillary Clinton, the Clintons have something about anniversaries. So Bill Clinton said, "Happy anniversary, Hillary." Just a couple of days ago, it just reminded me in 2016 when Hillary Clinton, put a tweet about her anniversary. At this point, this is the famous tweet, "Happy birthday to this future president." That makes me laugh every single time. I should not, but that's the way it is. So next, yes, we'll move to geopolitics. So what we see here is that we are getting again closer to World War III. Preparation are well underway. What we see here on the photo is that Russia has deployed in a war situation how do you say this? International cross ballistic missile, ICBMs, around Russia, and specifically on borders where Russia thinks it is threatened. But that kind of missiles can reach the US. Some of them are hypersonic, so basically I think you have 6 minutes to react in that kind of event. So the preparations are well underway, and basically it's not a good sign at this point. Putin has reiterated that the conditions for peace are not ready right now, because he still maintains his demands, such as NATO not being such as Ukraine not being part of NATO. That's the buffer that he already wanted, and basically one of the reasons that he invaded Ukraine at the time. He wants to have autonomy, if not the eastern regions of Ukraine being reattached to Russia. So basically, he says that the conditions for peace are not here right now. He knows well that at this time, Ukraine is in a bigger issue because again they're getting short of fighters. Western country may provide as many weapons as possible. If you have nobody to fight anymore, basically you lose the war. And again, this is something that I've talked about, in a very long time. The only thing that Russia has to do to win this war is to wait if NATO is not sending any troop, which I believe before the conflict is actually globalizing, they won't do because it would be very unpopular to the population. So basically, Russia is playing the waiting game. Ukraine doesn't seem to be able to do much about it. All the weapons that have been sent are basically useless, and you have this paper right here from the Atlantic, which is called The Abandonment of Ukraine. It's not the abandonment, is that we are sending weapons that are not efficient. If you look at what the article says, it says that the HIMARS system, the missiles that were supposed to hit Russia, they are totally inefficient in this kind of warfare. So basically, what we are most sending is mostly useless for them. It's always the cycle, because you say you send money to Ukraine, but you actually send money to military industrial complex here in the US to send weapon to Ukraine. So that's a big money laundering machine. And that's how we cover it. That's why we in the West do it, even though there is very little chance for the West and NATO to win that war anyway. And so basically, about back to the buffer that Putin wants for Ukraine. Some of the members of the military alliance have declared and stated that there's no path for Ukraine to join NATO. So at this point, there's nothing much more you can do. So that's one of the guys, which is foreign minister of Hungary, that declared this. And there's a lot more discussion about kind of West implementing something that they did with Germany in the past, basically replicating the World War II, how do you call this, scheme, maybe, which is splitting Ukraine between it's a Ukrainian part that maybe in the very far future could be in NATO, and leave the eastern region to Russia. There are many more talks about this, and this is an idea that is making progress at this point. I think I had something else to say, but that's probably not enough. On the ground, there is not much more to add. So back to the Middle East, which is where really the hottest point in the world is at this time. Just remember, this is the anniversary of the October 7th terrorist attack on a music festival in Israel that started what is still currently happening now. And so like I said, it takes a lot of time to get the truth. And the time of Israel is something that I've seen a couple of days ago, but that was released in the newspaper maybe a week ago, probably, that they later found that Hamas had offered on October 9 and 10, so 2 days after the attack, to release the civilians in exchange for the IDF being the Israeli Defense Forces, not entering the Strip. But the government rejected the offer. Obviously, this was a perfect condition to have to benefit from the chaos and from the the population, how do you say that, feelings at the time that would justify going in the Gaza Strip, and potentially getting rid of the Hamas, which they are trying to do in Gaza and in South Lebanon. But the cost of it obviously is huge. I won't detail all of this, but basically they could convert the Gaza Strip in a parking lot at this point. It's been flattened everywhere. South Lebanon and Lebanon might follow the same path. So that's been insane, and the quantity of bombs that have been launched on the Gaza Strip and South Lebanon is incommensurable. I would say. I would encourage you to compare the size of the Gaza Strip and Lebanon to any state of the US. You'll see that these places are tiny, really tiny, specifically at the US, size level. And so considering that all these bombs have been thrown on such, tiny place, it says something, basically. So what's happening now? So Israel is still bombing South Lebanon at this time to try to get rid of Hamas. They even have started striking up north of North Lebanon. Again, it's basically slowly escalating. Another interesting point is that Israel has also struck Syria, positions in Syria that are supposed to hosting Hamas, backup forces and some weapons that they were going to Hamas. Syria is supportive of Hamas and is an ally of Iran and Russia. And by the way, Russia was leading some military exercise in Syria with Syrian forces. So you see the pieces of the puzzle getting in place together slowly, but definitely surely. So what we were waiting for was Israel striking Iran in retaliation for the bombings that Iran launched. When was it? More than a week ago now. So I think that they are selecting very carefully their target. There seems to be at this point, because it's been mentioned by the Pentagon, kind of a drift between Israel and the US at this point, because Israel has been playing solo for some of the strikes that they have been doing on Lebanon. They first said that the strikes would be limited, and it happened to be much bigger than they are. And I think what the Pentagon said is that it puts the U.S. In a difficult position, in a position where they may not be able to truly ensure the security of Israel if they had to, because basically what the Pentagon was saying, if you read between the lines, is that they are not ready. They may not be ready to totally defend Israel at this point. So that puts the US at risk. And again, I mean, the reason that I think they are very slow to retaliate against Iran is that probably that Israel wants to hit hard Iran. The logic for them would be to get rid of Hamas, to get rid of Iran at this point for Israel. That's what makes sense. The US is already involved. Major, let's say, focus for the US is Russia and China. Obviously, less Iran. That would drag the US into a war against Iran that they may not want. at this time as well. So there's probably this discussion, between Israel and the US. Israel wanted to hit hard, and the US wanting to kind of hold back Israel against retaliations. Trump has declared that he would have hit already the nuclear facilities of Iran and figured that out after. And it's interesting because it's in a context where in Armenia, and I think this is really important, in Armenia, they have detected this, they have a seismic analysis station that has detected a 4.6 move of the earth, basically that they cannot attribute to earthquake. So most people think that it was actually an underground nuclear test from Iran, which again means that Iran has never been closer to have a nuclear weapon they could send on Israel. And obviously, like we said, the nuclear deterrent between the US and Russia. If now you can suppose that if Israel strikes Iran strong enough, Iran could be able to retaliate with a nuclear missile. So again, another potential for a really massive escalation, which is kind of really scary. It really becomes really scary at this point. So I don't know where we're going, but the other thing is that the other reason that they think that it was not an earthquake, an actual nuclear test from Iran, is that there was no aftershock. Usually when you have earthquakes, you have multiple aftershocks. After that, it didn't happen. Just one single 4.6 shock on the Richter scale. If you want a comparison, for instance, they had the US when they made an underground nuclear test, what they call the Sedan US nuclear test. It was recording a 4.7 strength on the Richter scale. So that's very comparable. That was probably definitely a nuclear test from Iran, which I think gives another reason for Israel to want to strike Iran now and fast and hard. I believe, but that's just my opinion. What else can we say? Yes, no, I've talked about this. Interestingly, Iran has already prepared for a strike from Israel. They have put many of their ships and tankers, oil tankers, at sea, not to be hit and to be preserved, because obviously the oil tankers are the bloodline of Iran at this point. They had, that's the major resource of financing, and everyone is getting prepared. Again, you see that in Russia, you see that in the Middle East. So I don't see any reason why suddenly it should go away if the US doesn't change position, meaning November 5th, if you see what I mean. Other point interesting in the Middle East, I'm trying to go a little bit faster. I know that I say that every single week, but another what is this? What is this? You know what? I'm just a quick pause because I never check the chat. Oh, Laura Louise is here. I'm very happy to see you. That's great. I love it. That's quite a few people today. Cliff Fraser, because that's really cool, because usually I can see the statistics and not that many people are saying hello, even if they're there. But that's very cool from you to show up and say hello. I like that. That makes me happy. It's better to see messages from you guys like this than seeing the statistics. Yeah, okay, I have that many viewers on the show. And basically no one said anything. There's not, I don't see anything in chat. So that is very very cool. Thank you to all of you. I mean, this guy, my greatest supporter, always here. So that's cool. We could hardly sleep. I bet. Okay, so let's continue this. Yes. Well, one thing that I want to finish with geopolitics, maybe at least for the Middle East, is that the Houthis have attacked a U.S. Oil tanker near the Red Sea with I've seen 11 ballistic missiles and 2 drones. I think it's crazy because this means that the US has failed to secure, not only to secure the Red Sea, because nobody goes through the Red Sea except Russians and Chinese, basically at this point. So the Navy has failed to secure that part of the world, but now they even failed to secure, even U.S. oil tankers, and I think that's a big blow. I mean, again, it goes to the weakening of the U.S. over the last 4 years. I believe, I agree, I mean, with Trump that being the leading force in the world, it's natural that you are constantly attacked, and if not attacked, tested. But at some point, you have to respond and show that your actions match your words. And, the reason that I think it's a big blow is shows, okay, anytime these days that the US is tested, the US is not really responding, which weakens the U.S. position in the world, and I think it's bad. You have to make a choice basically into two options between the West and the East at this point, and the issue is that all the tests that other countries are doing on the U.S., we are not showing. We are not showing strengths, and which means that the test will become bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why I agree that probably the US should have forced Iran into not developing their nuclear missiles. Now it's probably too late. And this probably what will lead to an escalation. It basically it's the same thing in every situation, whether you are in business or in geopolitics. If you have a problem and you don't try to fix it right away and you let it sleep, you just forget about it, the problem gets bigger and bigger until there's a point that it just cannot be solved unless with really, really hard decision. And this is where we have come up to at this point. So I will finish on this and my digression about the US forces, but I think we need a stronger administration in the White House. Again, last thing, Asia. I think I had something on Asia, but this is something small. I won't elaborate on this. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you this. These are the nuclear sites in Iran. It's again, if you want to have a really localized way of striking Iran without launching a massive global war. Natanz, for instance, is a really well-known site about nuclear development. If you just hit a couple of very specific sites that would prevent Iran to develop new nuclear weapons, I think that could be done. But I'm not I'm not in the military. I'm not tacticians, but that's kind of thing that what comes to mind. One last thing about Asia. There is again a closer collaboration between China and the North Korea. Again, you see the alliances taking shape. Specifically on the eastern side, you have Russia, Iran, Syria, China, and now North Korea that are really strengthening their alliances. So that's really interesting because on the other side, on the West, I mean, you have the US and basically the other Western country, so which means basically Europe at this point, are not ready to fight a war anyway. So you have the US against a really big coalition of other armies. This, I mean, this is a serious situation at this point. Anyways, let's go further to economy. It was, kind of a flat week. It got interested at the end of the week, and I will come up to that. But so the week, not last week, but no, not this week, but the week before, the expectation about rate cuts had collapsed. Simply, because the escalation in the Middle East, obviously, but mainly because of the job reports last Friday, not this Friday, but the Friday before. If you remember, we talked about this last week, and so the expectations for more rate cuts were really lower. You have now Fed members saying that they would even consider not cutting rates for November, which is kind of a first. But what's really interesting is that the incentive and basically the narrative for rate cuts has disappeared. And the market is still going up. Isn't that amazing? But what's also going up? Market is going up, but not everything is really kind of safe, basically quiet, because under the hood you still have gold going up very significantly. This is not something that you see in a really peaceful, no worries time. So obviously you have the debt, but it's a conjunction of many things: the debt, the geopolitical situation, and potentially, again, I mean, the numbers that are not as good as the government says they are. They have been lying about jobs for more than years. So just, I mean, in terms of numbers, the odds of the 50 basis point, I noted that yesterday, rate cut in November, they were 50% before the jobs report, again, the week before. Now they are only 3%. So it totally collapsed, and so nobody expects 50 bips in November. Now that's obvious, but even the chances of a rate curve of 20 bips have collapsed as well to 18% only. And it was I don't remember, but it was kind of 25 bips was much bigger than that. So gold is doing well in a kind of really uncertain situation. I don't know. I will talk about this because this is a post that I've done this week about, you see the term structure of the VIX, which is flatline. Basically, you have a short-term risk, which is about the elections, obviously, but after that, the VIX term structure is totally flat. This way on your side is totally flat, which means that the markets have no clue about what will happen after the election, and that's probably the reason why you see gold going up. So we had some move, this week, gold going down, but it went up again yesterday and was again really very close to the all-time highs. The other concerning part is bonds going down. So even though you have the S&P making new highs, breaking new records, under the hood, the situation is not as good as it looks. And everything, again, I kind of, parroting myself and repeating myself all over, but, the little graph at the bottom, what is this side. This side is right. Bottom right. Yeah, I have kind of left right dyslexia, but so bottom right. This is a comparison between the deficit between Trump and and Biden. So you see that so the Biden deficit is bigger than Trump's. You have to add other consideration because I've noted this where yes they use the Treasury cash account at the New York Fed that they pumped 1 trillion out of that. So the sum of this, you go above 9 trillion. So the deficit is huge, and the deficit has been used to actually hire people in public offices, which means that the jobs report are only made of, how do you call this? Let's say public job. So it's kind of more socialization of, if you want, but it's not the private sector and it's not the real economy that is providing this job. So again, just to say that this is totally fake. Thank you. I love your work too. I couldn't miss this one. Thank you, Lawis. And again, so I like that you are here today because that gives me the opportunity to thank you for the help that you're providing all the time. And, anytime I have the opportunity to thank you about that, I will. Thank you, and let's go on. So what is this? Why did I show this? I lost my train of thought at this point. I think I've put everything in a wrong order, but anyway. So what you have on the right is a graph showing the retired to active US worker, and these retirees are going up. So I know that the US retirement system is very different from what I've known in my earlier years in Europe, but it will become a lot like Europe because given again inflation, cost of living in the US, a lot of people don't have, well, much fewer people have retirement accounts, and many people are counting on Social Security for the old days, believe it or not. And that's a really big problem because we already know that Social Security will not be able to cope with the all the retirees that will be retiring, meaning that this will be a great impoverishment of the older population at this point. But this will put a lot of how do you say this? I mean, I'm losing my English again. So this will hurt basically the Social Security system. And the reason why that I wanted to put this, to link this to the current immigration, what Europe did when we started having that older population, it just said, okay, we have older population, we have not enough workers. What do? We take immigrants in to be able to work. So that used to work when we had, industrial. So in France, at least from what I know, because I come from a place in France that was really an industrial region, with steel mills and that kind of thing. So, and I saw this. They were hiring, low how do you say this, low paying jobs basically, and they do this with a lot of immigration. The thing is that when they thought that it would give workers, it put a lot of still the word that I cannot find, but a lot of difficulties, let's say, on the social security system as well, because this were people, with low income that were taking a lot of benefits. And so I mean, socialists always implement the same ideas. Basically, it fails over and over and over again, but they're still trying to say the same thing, because before it was not socialism. And that's probably why the current administration is probably aware of this, not only to win future elections, but also to kind of implement the same idea of, we don't have maybe enough workers, too many retirees. We need workers that will contribute to the social security system, to be able to pay for the retired workers. Sorry to break it to them. I've seen it before. It will not work. And France is nearly broke. They've just passed the budget yesterday. They are increasing taxes with minimal, lower spending from the government. But there's a point that it will break. There's no other way. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, besides that, is, Trump wants to eliminate income tax on Americans living abroad. And I've seen this from someone that shared this, someone living in Hong Kong. Because the guy was saying, well, all the guys in finance that are living in the US or in neighboring countries will want to come to Hong Kong, because you have 10% flat tax, something like this, and you won't be, if you make a really big income, you won't be taxed at 45-50%, like some years I used to, but it's a kind of insane. So that may trigger a move, but I find it interesting, to say the least. What else can I tell you? Yes. So let's go back to, what is it now? Do I still have another slide before moving to the markets? No, but so we'll talk about with this one about now the Fed worst nightmare that is materializing. Over the past months and weeks, I've said, the S word, stagflation is coming. Well, it seems that there we are, guys. Because you had on Thursday, you have the CPI, and on Friday you have the PPI rising. So the inflation is going up again. I mean, what a surprise when you are trying to, lower the interest rate by 50 bips. Too early. You refuse to see what is actually happening in the real world, which means that inflation has never been what the government has said it would be. If you look at grocery price, basically real prices, still housing, you see, even gas, when Trump left, it was $2 something on gas. Now it's still, three, a little bit more here. So that's maybe 30% increase. But what the government did is that they removed from the price index things that, they were considering not worthy of being in the price index, because it was taking it up. So basically they were massaging the data, but still they were hiding the truth, and the truth always come back, which means that inflation is going up. Now, if you add this to manipulated data from the jobs, again, like I said last week, the jobs report was probably heavily manipulated to create a narrative that finally the current administration work was paying dividends, was being fruitful. And I mean, this narrative is already collapsing basically after a week. I've seen reports, again, I didn't detail the numbers, but I've seen reports that, again, most of the jobs that were created that appeared in the last job reports were actually, public jobs, not private jobs. So it's always the same thing again. So it's easy to see it coming because it's always the same pattern. So the fear now is that we go back to the situation that we had in the 70s, with another wave of inflation that will be very difficult for the Americans to cope with, because the first wave basically has depleted all their income savings. You can see that so savings are kind of negative, at least for Americans. The positive savings are actually, this is a chart that I showed a couple of weeks ago. Positive savings come from foreign people having savings in the US. So that's insane. So the credit card levels is to the roof. So at some point it will break. I don't know how, but again, I think we need a change here. What can I tell you more? I could tell you more about inflation and the jobs, but I think that the important point is that we are going kind of into stagflation, because the growth was driven by the debt, and the jobs was driven by public employment. Remove these two, and this is what you actually have in reality. So let's go to markets now. There are still people here. Just checking. Okay, so let's go to markets now. So the week was, again, SPY, Qs positive on the week. The big thing at this point is the weakness of the bonds market at the time when the Fed is decreasing interest rates. Bonds rates are rising and bonds are collapsing. If you look, I always say that basically there are smart and dumb markets, and the smart market is the bond market. The dumb market is the equity market, if you want my opinion. So you'd better look at, if you want to look at the economy, actually look at the bond market to figure it out. And the bond market is telling us a very different story than the one that we are given into narrative at this point. So basically, the narrative is, okay, I understand, Laura Louise, that you have to run. You know that I'm always very, very low. I am very happy that you managed to be here today. That's very cool, and I hope to see you soon again. Thank you again for joining. And whenever these guys, Laura Louise and Henrik Blatt, have an event, I really encourage you to go there and to hear what they have to say. They have invaluable, they're providing invaluable help and guidance to anyone that is willing to take the time to listen to what they have to say. They have an amazing experience, and they are always very nice to share. So thank you, Laura Louise. Have fun, and see you soon. So let's go back to the markets where I was here. So next slide is this. It's basically 1 week performance on the futures. What you can notice very rapidly is, despite the market going up, the VIX is also going up, which is quite interesting. Again, you have the market, the stock market. Again, like I said, it's probably the dumb market. The two other smart markets are the bond market and the options market that you can see through the VIX. And so bond markets and VIX is telling something, a very different story than the new highs that the news media, financial news media is reporting. Obviously, that is where they win, but you have to be aware of that kind of situation. What else did go down? Some commodities, but I will talk about oil very rapidly. Maybe I can, again, I mean, just to take a look at the insanity of the situation. Is this one of the best day ever? Isn't that interesting, considering the issues with the debt, jobs, the real economy, considering the geopolitical tensions? It's amazing that the S&P 500 is having a year for the books. It's crazy. So that's since 2000 only, but it's very impressive because within the years that you see here, you have the year of the rebound, 2009. You have 2017, for instance. I mean, the market was going up, without any kind of volatility. So it's one of the best year for the S&P 500. At a time where you feel that everything is going wrong. But that goes back to the little chart that you have at the bottom right, which shows the difference between the actual S&P 500 in yellow and the S&P 500 corrected for inflation. So while the S&P 500 is 6,540% up since 1967, this is actually corrected for inflation, only up 600%. So now, considering that the inflation that we had for the last couple of years, if you adjust this chart for inflation, and again, like I said, most of the growth is coming from the debt that money printing that the government is putting in the economy, you kind of say, okay, that's at the end of the day maybe not that surprising that the market is going that up, but it has to be corrected for inflation. And when you do that, correcting by inflation, the performance of the S&P 500 is obviously much lower than it is now, compared to years that you have in this chart where inflation was, basically around the target, which was 2%. So that's where we are now. So again, you always have to put the numbers in context and not take things and number for face value. That's my point. Next, this is the VIX. So you've seen that on the week, the VIX has risen, mostly because of at the beginning of this week, it has retracted a little bit more after yesterday. But the VIX is still on the rise. Like this is what I was telling you before, the flat line of the VIX. So you have the uncertainty materialize in the VIX term structure by a higher volatility at the beginning, which goes until December, which, until you go to January, where you will have the transition to a new administration, whether it's Trump or Kamala Harris. So you have this, little bit of uptick in volatility, but after that, this is a flat line. I've never seen this, honestly, which means that the market are totally clueless about what will happen after January. Basically, in 2025, nobody knows at this point. Probably you had the narrative that everything was back on track. You had higher jobs. Inflation was contained. But now all these narratives are thrown out of the window and doesn't mean anything anymore. So we might go into a kind of 1970s scenario, and I think that's where we are now. We are in a transition between a narrative and a reality that is, sinking in, settling in, maybe. And the market say, okay, where we are now, we have no idea. We'll have to figure this out after the election, because that will be obviously two very different economic policies for the US, depending on who wins. So again, the S&P 500 made new time highs. It was on Wednesday, I believe. Made new time highs again on Friday. Everything looks very good from that perspective, which I mentioned was not exactly the case. The Dow Jones Index, really massive breakout. And that lets me emphasize a little point that I made a couple of days, maybe weeks ago, is that it's very hard, despite the economic situation that we have, it's very hard to short a market that is making new highs. Because you have no idea how far this market can go, basically on itself. So it is very hard to do that. So despite all the uncertainties about the economy, so maybe I need to change my banner, saying that this is not an investment advice, and this is for information only, because I realize that I may say something that can be construed as an investment advice when it's not. It's only information about what I think about how to approach the market, and in my experience. But my experience is that the market can go up on itself, basically without any other catalyst. It can make new highs and new highs for quite a period of time, and for quite an extended length and performance, before reality strikes back. Not the empire, but the reality strikes back. So I would never advise to short a market that is making new highs, despite everything that we can hear about. It's very, very difficult. So don't forget that a market can go up on its own by itself. You don't need another reason. Sometimes just something goes up, something goes down, and it is what it is. So bonds that are collapsing, telling a very different narrative from the government narrative, because there are two things in my opinion in this. So the first down reaction was about kind of selling the news when the Fed decided to cut 50 bips. I think the next move after that was the jobs market, with fear of inflation coming back, and that's when the long-term bonds actually collapsed on that specific day. So my point is that inflation is coming back. That may force higher interest rates at this point. So it's a very different narrative from what we are given from the Fed. And I believe that this actually is the reality, because this is the market. This is people who have skin in the game that are trading these markets. And this is what I believe. This is what they're saying at this point. Not only rate cuts are basically kind of going away with inflation. Yes. So again, I can stop that there. But again, my point. First, probably sell the news. Second point is inflation is coming back, and we will need higher interest rate, not lower interest rate like the Fed is pushing at this time, which means that there's probably another reason for the Fed hitting that hard on interest rate cuts. I often mention the banking sector situation that benefits from low interest rates. You may have banks that are in much more trouble than what is said, and that require these lower interest rates. But again, that fuels lower interest rate, fuel again inflation, which puts again pressure on the bonds. And I believe that's basically the rationale behind the bond collapse at this point. Again, this is the biggest market in the world, and this is the smart market. Keep looking at the bonds, my friends. So the other news of the week was, and even maybe a little last week, if I remember, was the jump. Yes, I talked about it last week already. The jump of, so you have the Chinese stock index that, jumped dramatically. The CSI was in a very long-term downtrend, and there was a lot of people that were short at this point, the CSI index, and you can see this as the result of stimulus announcement by China and a short squeeze at this point. You put two together with a much lower liquidity market than we can have in the US, and you get that kind of mood. That is very difficult to capture. You had quite a few reports this week about many hedge funds suffering quite significant losses on that move, because again, the market was continuously going down. The CSI was continuously going down, so they were taking, by reverse, I would say, on this, until what? Until China said, well, that stimulus is not that certain, and that's when you had this big candle down from the top, and again CSI kind of dumping again on Friday. So that was the big move. You have to be very fast to be able to capture that, but I think that the most important point about that kind of move, if you were short, your capacity to protect your investment from that kind of move. That's the most important. I don't think that this is something that you necessarily want to capture, but it's something that you want to protect yourself from. So that's the oil. I made a comment this week about the oil, which was that when was it? Might be on Wednesday, maybe, when you had yes, this is when the CSI collapsed. You had two things happening at the same time on that day. You had China saying that the stimulus was not that certain, or at least at the level that the market were anticipating it. And at the same time, you had news in the Middle East saying that Israel was about to strike Iran. And that day, the oil dropped, 4.5%, if I remember well. I don't have exactly the number in mind, but that showed me, that specific day, that showed me that the focus on oil is not about the Middle East. You can erase Iran from the picture. The world will not be short oil. A lot of producers, the US can be and is oil independent. Saudi Arabia, you've noticed that they don't say anything about the Palestinian cause. So the Saudi Arabia will still, pump oil. You have I think I mentioned that this week there was another discovery of a really large oil field at this point. So the crisis in the Middle East doesn't seem to be driving much the price of oil. What seems to be driving the price of oil nowadays is the economic activity and the need for energy to run this economic activity, which is why the stimulus from China, trigger that rise in oil, and that drop in oil a couple of days ago. I think this is where the focus is now, about oil. That's my take on this. So again, gold, you have a little bit of weakness this week. That was corrected on the last 2 days. Gold came back on the higher side. I think, again, like I said, it just shows that there's a lot of uncertainty, whether it's from geopolitics, obviously, but economic situation, specifically in the US. You can know that whatever the administration, the deficit and the debt will not go away like this anyway. So basically, this gives support to, obviously, gold, and also support to Bitcoin, obviously, which is another hard asset compared to fiat currency that can be printed at will by our friend Jay Powell. May not be stay long in office, but this is the guy that is running the show right now. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Bitcoin is not going higher more rapidly. Again, I really think that if you look at the converging wedges everywhere, that we are in a situation, and even bonds going back to where they were, we are kind of a waiting situation until waiting situation until the US election, which I think cannot be much more materialized by this VIX term structure. Okay, my friends, do I have any questions? Thank you, Galaran. Yes, I know. I'm really sorry. I could speak for hours about this, and I need to make it shorter. But anyway, Cliff, thank you very much for your time. It's over now. We're done. So you didn't miss much of this episode. I really want to thank all of you to be here today. I just can run a couple of people that were here. That's really great to see that people are here. Again, it's much better to see people here in the comments rather than in the statistics after the episode. So that's very cool. So Cliff, again, we had our big friend Enric. I hope I make you think. That's the point, and that's what I expect from a lot of people when I have interaction with you guys. I'm not willing to be in an echo chamber, and this is why I have basically the side I'm leaning on. It's quite obvious, right? But so I have right-leaning friends, but I also have left-leaning friends, because I want to hear about what every people have to say to make my own opinion. So yes, if these kind of sessions make you think, I'm really happy about it. So we had Daniel as well today. Daniel that is saying goodbye. Thank you, guys. So I will stop here. I won't thank everyone that's been here today. Thank you for your time. It's been always too long, as usual. But if I was bored about it, I would not do it. And you can always leave when you have enough of me. And see the replay on LinkedIn and on my YouTube channel that have maybe 3 subscribers, I believe, at this time. But this is streamed on YouTube as well, so meaning that you can watch it in the live sections of the YouTube channel if you miss some of it and you want to maybe to elaborate on this and potentially, review some of the things that you may not have seen. Okay, I'm done. Thank you. I wish you an amazing weekend. Have fun. Enjoy your friends. Enjoy your family. Enjoy the sun. It's getting cooler here in South Carolina. I stopped sleeping with the window open because it's getting cold at night now. But that's where we are. Thank you very much. Enjoy. Have fun. And see you soon. Bye bye.